My sister used an award speech to shame me. My quiet luxury revenge named me Successor is CEO. During my sister's award speech, she grinned at the crowd and said, "My sister's the family pity case. 3 kids, no ring, just bad choices." My uncle barked out, like mother, like daughter. The audience's laughter cut short when the CEO stood, grabbed the mic, and the air turned to ice. The elevator doors slid open, and there was Jennifer already inside, her fingers wrapped around a steaming latte. She didn't move aside to make room. Instead, she tilted her head with that practiced smile that never reached her eyes. "Susan, darling," she purred loud enough for the 3 other employees to hear. "How are you managing? I mean, with everything you have on your plate." Her tone dripped with false concern, each word carefully chosen to sound caring while cutting deep. I stepped into the cramped space, my worn shoulder bag brushing against her designer blazer. "I'm fine, Jennifer. Thank you for asking." "Oh, I'm sure you are." She exchanged a meaningful glance with Marcus from accounting. "It's just that we were discussing the quarterly reports yesterday and, well," she paused dramatically, "some of us were wondering if maybe you're spreading yourself too thin. 3 children is a lot for anyone to handle alone. Before we continue, I want to thank you for joining me in sharing these stories of workplace resilience. If you believe that hard work deserves recognition regardless of personal circumstances, please consider subscribing. It's free and helps us reach more women who need to hear this. Now, let's see how this unfolds." The elevator climbed slowly, each floor feeling like an eternity. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Sarah, from marketing, suddenly found her phone fascinating, but Jennifer's eyes never left my face, waiting for me to crack. "My work speaks for itself," I replied evenly, though my pulse quickened. "Of course it does, sweetie. Of course it does." The doors opened at the 15th floor, and Jennifer glided out first, her heels clicking against the marble. As she passed the reception desk, I caught her whispered words to Linda. "Bless her heart, she's trying so hard." I walked past the break room where conversations halted mid-sentence. Through the glass partition, I saw Uncle David leaning against the counter, his coffee mug raised like he was making a toast. Some people just weren't built for the corporate world, he declared to his small audience. "Takes a certain kind of strength, a certain kind of foundation." His eyes found mine through the glass, and his smile turned predatory. "He was my mother's brother, the man who bounced me on his knee when I was 5, who taught me to ride a bicycle in his driveway. Now he treated me like a cautionary tale at family gatherings, a whispered warning about what happens when women make poor choices." My desk sat in the corner of the open office space, positioned where everyone could see my every move. It wasn't always this way. 6 months ago, I had a proper cubicle near the window, but then Jennifer got promoted to team leader, and suddenly there was a restructuring that left me exposed and isolated. I powered up my computer and dove into the Morrison account files. The numbers didn't lie, even when people did. This client represented 30% of our quarterly revenue, and I had been managing their portfolio for 3 years without a single complaint. But somehow, Jennifer had been taking credit for the relationship in meetings I was mysteriously never invited to attend. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma's school. Parent conference needed regarding math grades. Another buzz, soccer practice moved to 4 p.m. Then another pediatrician appointment confirmed for tomorrow. I typed responses quickly, scheduling conflicts dancing in my head like a complex equation I couldn't quite solve. The woman at the next desk glanced over, her expression mixing pity with judgment. She had 1 child and a husband who picked up slack. She didn't understand that my world operated on borrowed time and sheer determination. "Susan!" The voice belonged to Margaret from HR, standing beside my desk with a manila folder clutched against her chest. Her smile looked rehearsed, the kind they practice in corporate training seminars. "Could I speak with you for a moment?" "In my office." The walk down the hallway felt endless. Colleagues peeked over computer screens, their curiosity barely concealed. Jennifer appeared in her doorway, arms crossed, watching the procession with satisfaction. Margaret's office smelled like vanilla air freshener and broken dreams. She settled behind her desk, the folder still pressed against her body like a shield. "There's been some concern," she began carefully, "about your recent performance metrics." I leaned forward slightly. "What specific concerns?" "Well," she opened the folder, revealing printed emails and what looked like a handwritten note. "There have been reports of missed deadlines, incomplete projects, and general distraction." The lies hung in the air between us. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my completed task list, my email confirmations, my project timestamps, everything documented, everything on time, everything exceeding expectations. "Here's my actual performance record," I said, sliding the phone across her desk. "Every deadline met, every project completed ahead of schedule, every client satisfaction survey rating me excellent or outstanding." Margaret's eyes darted between the screen and the folder. The evidence was undeniable, but so was the pressure she was receiving from somewhere higher up the chain. "I see," she murmured. "Well, perhaps there's been some miscommunication." No apology came. We both knew none would. The afternoon dragged on with the weight of unspoken accusations. I worked through lunch, solving problems that others created, fixing errors that somehow got attributed to my oversight. The office gradually emptied as 5 o'clock approached, but I remained determined to finish everything perfectly. The janitor, Carlos, appeared with his cart around 7:30. He had worked here longer than anyone, invisible to most, but always kind to me. "Still here, Miss Susan?" He shook his head with gentle disapproval. "You work harder than anyone in this building." His words carried genuine warmth, such a contrast to the cold calculation I faced all day. For a moment, my carefully constructed walls threatened to crumble. "Thank you, Carlos. Just finishing up." He nodded and continued his quiet work, humming softly under his breath. The melody was familiar, something my mother used to sing while doing dishes. The memory caught me off guard, bringing unexpected tears to my eyes. The parking garage echoed with my footsteps as I finally headed home. My car, a 10-year-old sedan with a dent in the passenger door, sat under a flickering fluorescent light. I slid behind the wheel and rested my forehead against the steering wheel for just a moment, allowing myself this small weakness in the darkness where no one could see. At home, chaos greeted me as usual. Emma needed help with algebra. Michael's soccer uniform needed washing for tomorrow's game, and little Sophie had created what she called art with markers on the kitchen wall. But then Sophie ran to me with a piece of construction paper, her gap-toothed grin lighting up the room. "Look, Mama, I drew you at work." The crayon figure sat behind an enormous desk wearing what appeared to be a golden crown. Purple and pink flowers surrounded the drawing, and in the corner, she had written the boss in shaky letters. "You're the boss, Mama," she declared with absolute certainty. "The biggest boss in the whole world." I knelt down and pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. In her eyes, I was not a failure or a cautionary tale. I was a queen ruling from a magnificent throne. If only the rest of the world could see what she saw. The invitation arrived 3 days later, slipped under my apartment door like a secret message. Golden script on cream paper announced the company's annual awards gala. No envelope, no postmark, just the card itself with a handwritten note in the corner. "You deserve to see this, a friend." I stared at the elegant lettering, knowing full well my name wasn't on the original guest list. Jennifer's explanation about the bounced email still echoed in my memory, delivered with that practiced innocence she had perfected over the years. Friday evening found me standing before my closet's meager offerings. The black dress from my sister's wedding 5 years ago hung beside 2 blazers and a collection of sensible work clothes. I slipped into the dress. Its fabric was slightly loose now from months of skipped lunches and stress-induced weight loss. The mirror reflected someone trying too hard to belong in a world that had made it clear she didn't. The hotel ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers and designer gowns that cost more than my monthly rent. I entered through the side entrance, hoping to avoid the main reception line where Jennifer held court with the other executives' spouses. My thrift store heels clicked softly against marble floors as I navigated toward the back corner, seeking the shadows where I could observe without being seen. Champagne flutes clinked like tiny bells throughout the room. Conversations flowed in clusters around award nominees, each group radiating the kind of confidence that comes from never questioning your place in the hierarchy. I recognized faces from morning meetings and elevator encounters, but here they wore different masks, relaxed, powerful, untouchable. A waiter approached with a silver tray. "Champagne, miss?" "Thank you." The glass felt foreign in my hand, too delicate for someone accustomed to coffee mugs and water bottles. Jennifer's laughter carried across the room, bright and sharp as breaking glass. She was surrounded by a circle of admirers, her red dress commanding attention like a beacon. Uncle David stood nearby, his chest puffed with borrowed importance, basking in reflected glory. The lights dimmed as dinner concluded, and the awards ceremony began. I pressed myself against the back wall, partially hidden by a decorative column. The CEO took the podium, his presence commanding immediate silence. He spoke about innovation, dedication, and the company's bright future. His eyes swept the room, but never landed on my corner. This year's Employee Excellence Award, he announced, goes to someone who exemplifies our core values of integrity, perseverance, and leadership. The spotlight found Jennifer before her name was even called. She glided toward the stage like she owned every inch of marble beneath her feet. The applause built as she accepted the crystal trophy, her smile radiant under the bright lights. "Thank you," she began, her voice carrying easily through the sound system. "This award means everything to me, but I couldn't have achieved this without learning from examples, both positive and negative." My stomach tightened. Something in her tone shifted, became more personal, more pointed. "I want to dedicate this award to someone very special in my life. My dear sister Susan." She paused, letting the name hang in the air. The family pity case. 3 kids, no ring, just bad choices stacked on top of more bad choices. The room erupted in surprised laughter. Some people glanced around, trying to spot the target of this unexpected roast. Others simply enjoyed the spectacle, comfortable in their assumption that this person wasn't among them. My hands trembled against the champagne flute. The crystal grew slippery with perspiration as Jennifer continued her performance. "Susan teaches us all what not to do," she declared with mock sincerity. "How not to manage a career, how not to handle relationships, how not to raise children properly. She's a walking cautionary tale for modern women everywhere." Uncle David's voice boomed from his table near the front, like mother, like daughter. His timing was perfect, practiced as if they had rehearsed this moment. The laughter swelled, feeding on itself, growing louder and crueler with each passing second. Faces turned in my direction now, following pointing fingers and knowing glances. The shadows that once protected me now felt like a spotlight, exposing every flaw, every failure, every moment of struggle. My fingernails dug crescents into my palms. The champagne glass threatened to slip from my grip. Don't cry here, not in front of them, not when they were watching for exactly that reaction. Jennifer raised her trophy high, basking in the applause that felt more like an execution than a celebration. "To family dysfunction," she called out, prompting another wave of laughter. Then something changed. A chair scraped against marble with unusual force. The laughter began to falter, replaced by confused murmurs. Heads turned toward the sound. The CEO stood at his table, his expression unreadable, but his posture radiating quiet authority. The room fell silent with stunning swiftness, as if someone had flipped a switch. Even Jennifer froze mid-gesture, her trophy still raised, but her smile beginning to waver. He walked toward the podium with measured steps, each footfall echoing in the sudden silence. Jennifer stepped aside, reluctantly, confusion flickering across her features. The CEO took the microphone with steady hands. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice calm, but carrying an undercurrent of steel. "I have an announcement to make." My heart pounded so loudly I was certain the entire room could hear it. Every pair of eyes in the ballroom shifted between the stage and my corner, creating an invisible line of tension that threatened to snap. 7 days from now," he continued, his gaze finding mine across the crowded room, "I will marry Susan Patterson, the most hard-working, dedicated, and admirable employee this company has ever known. You're all invited to witness our union." The silence exploded into chaos. Gasps rippled through the crowd like shock waves. Jennifer's crystal trophy slipped from her fingers, shattering against the stage floor with a sound that seemed to echo forever. Uncle David's champagne glass hovered halfway to his mouth, his jaw slack with disbelief. "And one more thing," the CEO added, his voice cutting through the growing murmur of voices. His eyes never left mine, steady and unwavering. "My future wife will be making decisions about staffing and personnel matters going forward. I trust her judgment completely." The words hit the room like a thunderclap. Jennifer's face drained of color. Uncle David finally set down his glass with shaking hands. The carefully constructed hierarchy of the evening crumbled in real time. I stood frozen against my column. The CEO extended his hand toward me, a silent invitation to step out of the shadows and into a light I never dared imagine could be mine. I walked toward his outstretched hand through a sea of frozen faces. Each step felt surreal, as if I was watching someone else's life unfold from a great distance. The ballroom remained silent except for the whisper of my dress against my legs and the soft clink of broken crystal being swept away. His fingers closed around mine, warm and steady. "Shall we?" he murmured, and together we left the stunned crowd behind. The ride home passed in a blur of streetlights and racing thoughts. He followed me in his car, hazard lights blinking through my rearview mirror like a strange beacon. At my apartment complex, he walked me to the door without speaking, simply nodded, "Good night," and drove away. Inside, the babysitter looked up from her textbook with sleepy eyes. "How was your evening, Mrs. Patterson?" "Eventful." I managed paying her and watching her gather her things. Once she was gone, I checked on the children. Emma curled around her stuffed elephant. Michael sprawled across his bed with soccer cleats still on, Sophie clutching a crayon in her sleep. I poured a glass of water and sat at my kitchen table, still wearing the black dress that now felt like a costume from another life. My phone screen lit up with notifications. 17 missed calls, 42 text messages. The first few were from CO workers. "OMG, is this real? Girl, what just happened? Call me immediately." Then the tone shifted. Unknown numbers with messages that made my skin crawl. "Gold digger. Pathetic. Using your body to get ahead." Jennifer's number appeared repeatedly. "Answer your phone. We need to talk. This isn't over." Uncle David's contact showed 5 missed calls and 1 voicemail. I deleted it without listening. Sleep came in fragments between anxiety and adrenaline. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jennifer's face crumbling as the trophy shattered. The sound of that crystal hitting marble played on repeat in my mind. My alarm buzzed at 6, though I had been awake for an hour already. The children needed breakfast, lunch money, permission slips signed. Normal life continued despite the earthquake that had shifted everything beneath us. "Mama, you look different," Sophie observed over her cereal bowl. "Different how, sweetheart?" She tilted her head, studying me with the intense focus only children possess. "Shinier, like when I use the good crayons instead of the broken ones." Emma glanced up from her homework folder. "There's something you're not telling us, isn't there?" My eldest daughter had inherited my ability to read between lines, to sense undercurrents that others missed. It was both a gift and a burden I wished I could spare her. "We'll talk tonight," I promised, kissing the top of her head. "After school, after soccer practice, when we have time to really talk." The drive to work felt different. The same route, the same traffic lights, but everything had changed. My phone buzzed with a new message as I parked. "Breakfast meeting, 9 a.m., my office, Raymond." His first name in text form startled me. For 3 years, he had been Mr. Coleman or the CEO. Now he was Raymond, a man who stood up in a crowded room and claimed me as his own. The office lobby buzzed with unusual energy. Conversations halted as I passed. Eyes followed my movement to the elevator. The security guard, usually invisible behind his desk, actually nodded at me with something resembling respect. Jennifer's office door stood open, but she was nowhere to be seen. Her assistant, Patricia, glanced up nervously. "She called in sick," she whispered conspiratorially. "First time in 4 years." The elevator to the executive floor required a special key card. I had never been up there, never had reason to venture into the realm of corner offices and mahogany furniture. Today, the security desk handed me a temporary pass without question. Raymond's office overlooked the city through floor-to-ceiling windows. He stood with his back to the door, hands clasped behind him, watching traffic move like tiny toys far below. 2 coffee cups sat on a small conference table, steam rising in the morning light. "Thank you for coming," he said without turning around. "I wasn't sure you would." I wasn't sure either. He turned then, and I saw something unexpected in his expression. Vulnerability. This powerful man who commanded boardrooms and made million-dollar decisions looked uncertain, almost boyish. "About last night," he began, settling into the chair across from me. I spoke without thinking. The situation demanded action, and He paused, searching for words. "I couldn't stand watching them tear you down." I wrapped my hands around the coffee cup, grateful for its warmth. "You barely know me." "I know enough." His voice carried quiet conviction. 3 years of watching you work twice as hard for half the recognition, seeing you stay late while others take credit for your ideas, observing how you handle every crisis with grace while they create new ones. The coffee tasted expensive, rich, and smooth in a way that my usual office brew never managed. "So, this was about fairness? Justice?" Partly. He leaned back, studying my face, but also about something I've been thinking about for months. Your brilliance, your strength, your refusal to break despite everything they've thrown at you. My laugh came out sharper than intended. I'm not sure brilliance includes being a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. The circumstances of your life don't diminish your worth, he said simply. If anything, they prove your resilience. We sat in silence for a moment. City sounds filtered up through the windows. Car horns, construction noise, the distant rumble of a passing train. What you did last night, I finally said, it can't be undone. People will expect. I know. He met my eyes directly. Which is why I'm asking, would you consider making it real? Not the marriage announcement. That was impulse, but partnership. Real partnership, both professional and personal. The word trust hovered between us, unspoken but heavy with meaning. I thought of my ex-husband's promises, his lies, the way love became a weapon in his hands. I'm not sure I can trust a man again. I admitted the words raw and honest. He didn't flinch, didn't rush to reassure me with empty platitudes. Take your time. No pressure, but know this. Yesterday changed everything. Whether we move forward together or not, you'll never be invisible again. His smile transformed his entire face, erasing the corporate mask I had grown accustomed to seeing in boardrooms. Partnership it is, Raymond said, extending his hand across the polished conference table. Equal footing, shared decisions, mutual respect. I shook his hand, surprised by the calluses on his palm. Somehow I had expected the hands of a CEO to be soft, untested. When do we start? How about now? He pulled out his phone and dialed a 3-digit extension. Margaret, please prepare the paperwork for Susan Patterson's promotion to Senior Vice President of Operations, effective immediately, and schedule a company-wide meeting for tomorrow morning. The words hit me with unexpected force. Senior Vice President, not just a title change, but a complete transformation of my position within the company hierarchy. My hands trembled slightly as I set down my cup. The rest of the morning passed in a whirlwind of paperwork, orientation meetings, and security badge updates. My new office sat 3 floors up from my old desk with windows that actually opened and a door that closed. The nameplate read Susan Patterson, SVP Operations in elegant brass letters. By lunch, the whispers had begun. I was standing in line at the cafeteria when I heard Jennifer's voice behind me, pitched just loud enough to carry. It's so obvious what's happening here. Some people will do anything to climb the ladder. Her friend Marissa responded with practiced shock. You don't really think she's sleeping her way to the top? What else would you call it? One day she's nobody, the next she's practically running the company. I turned around slowly, meeting Jennifer's eyes directly. Is there something you'd like to say to my face, Jennifer? Her cheeks flushed, but she lifted her chin defiantly. Just making conversation about recent developments. Then let me clarify something for you. My voice carried further than I intended, causing other conversations to halt. My promotion is based on 3 years of exemplary performance, not whatever sordid fantasy you're constructing in your head. The cafeteria fell silent. Workers at nearby tables pretended to focus on their sandwiches while straining to hear every word. Jennifer's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Before she could respond, a firm voice cut through the tension. Miss Hartwell, Miss Patterson. Margaret from HR appeared beside us, her expression stern. I need to speak with you both now. Jennifer's confidence evaporated instantly. Margaret, I was just making defamatory statements about a senior executive, Margaret interrupted. In a public space in front of witnesses. The walk to HR felt like a death march. Jennifer's heels clicked frantically against the marble floor as she struggled to keep pace with Margaret's measured stride. I followed behind, watching my sister's carefully constructed world begin to crumble in real time. Margaret's office door closed with a definitive click. She settled behind her desk, fingers steepled, expression unreadable. Miss Hartwell, in the past 24 hours, we've received 17 separate reports of inappropriate comments regarding Miss Patterson's promotion. All of these reports include direct quotes attributing these comments to you. Jennifer's face drained of color. I was just... You were engaging in workplace harassment and creating a hostile work environment, Margaret stated flatly. Both are grounds for immediate termination. The word termination hung in the air like a sword. Jennifer looked at me desperately, perhaps expecting some intervention, some sisterly mercy. but I remained silent, hands folded calmly in my lap. However, Margaret continued, Miss Patterson has requested that we handle this as a learning opportunity rather than a disciplinary action. You'll be attending sensitivity training, and any future incidents will result in immediate dismissal. Jennifer's relief was palpable, but it was mixed with something else. Confusion, maybe even grudging respect. She nodded rapidly, agreeing to terms she probably hadn't fully processed. As we left HR, Jennifer caught my arm in the hallway. Why? She whispered. Why didn't you let them fire me? I paused, considering her question. Because you're still my sister, even when you forget that I'm yours. The afternoon brought my first executive committee meeting. The boardroom intimidated, with its polished mahogany table and leather chairs that cost more than my monthly salary. Department heads filed in, their expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed hostility. Uncle David arrived last, his face thunderous. He took his seat across from me without acknowledgement, his jaw set in hard lines. Raymond called the meeting to order, his voice carrying the authority that silenced an entire ballroom just days ago. Before we begin regular business, I want to introduce our newest executive team member. Susan Patterson brings extensive operational expertise and will be overseeing several key initiatives moving forward. Eyes darted between Raymond and me, calculating new power dynamics, measuring shifting alliances. Tom Richardson from finance cleared his throat nervously. No disrespect intended, he began carefully, but this is rather sudden. Miss Patterson's previous role was vastly underutilized. Raymond finished smoothly, which is why we're correcting that oversight now. Uncle David's chair scraped against the floor as he pushed back abruptly. This is ridiculous. You can't just promote family members whenever. Mr. Morrison. Raymond's voice cut like steel. Miss Patterson's qualifications speak for themselves unless you have specific concerns about her professional capabilities. The challenge hung in the air. Uncle David opened his mouth, then closed it again, clearly struggling between family loyalty and professional survival. The Morrison account alone justifies her position, I said quietly, my first words in the meeting. 30% of quarterly revenue, 0 client complaints, consistent growth year over year. I've been managing that relationship personally for 3 years. Silence settled over the room. Several department heads nodded slowly, recognition dawning in their expressions. The Morrison account was legendary within the company. Our biggest client, our most demanding, our most profitable. I wasn't aware you were the primary contact, Tom admitted grudgingly. Most people weren't, I replied evenly. That's going to change. The meeting proceeded with surprising normalcy. I contributed to discussions about budget allocations and strategic planning. My voice was steady and confident. People listened, really listened, for the first time in my career. As the room emptied, Uncle David approached my chair. His expression mixed anger with something that might be respect. You think you've won? He said quietly. You think this company is yours now? I remained seated, hands folded calmly on the polished table. You taught me something important, Uncle David. You said business is business, that personal feelings have no place in professional decisions. I'm simply applying the lesson you gave me. His fury wavered, transforming into something approaching bewilderment. The man who bounced me on his knee, who taught me to ride a bicycle, stared at me as if seeing a stranger. This isn't over, he muttered. But the threat lacked conviction. No, I agreed softly. It's just beginning. That evening, I sat on my living room floor helping Sophie with an art project. She was cutting construction paper crowns, her tongue poking out in concentration. This one's for you, Mama, she announced, placing a glittery purple crown on my head. Queen Mama. Emma looked up from her homework, studying my face with those perceptive eyes that missed nothing. You look different again, stronger. Michael bounced a soccer ball against the wall, grinning. Are you really the boss now, Mom? I adjusted the paper crown Sophie made, feeling its whimsical weight. 3 weeks passed like scenes from someone else's life. My new office overlooked the parking lot where I used to sit in my dented sedan, gripping the steering wheel and fighting back tears. Now I watched Jennifer arrive each morning, her designer heels clicking against asphalt with less confidence than before. Raymond's assistant delivered a manila folder to my desk with the company's letterhead embossed in gold. Inside, 2 personnel files rested beneath a handwritten note, your decision, no questions asked. Jennifer Hartwell, David Morrison. Their employment records, performance reviews, disciplinary actions, everything documented in neat corporate precision. The power to end their careers sat in my hands like a loaded weapon. I buzzed my assistant. Please ask Miss Hartwell and Mr. Morrison to meet me in my office at 3:00. Together, ma'am? Together. The afternoon crawled by with excruciating slowness. I reviewed quarterly reports, approved budget requests, returned phone calls from clients who now spoke to me with genuine respect, but my mind kept drifting to the manila folder, to the two people who turned my name into a punchline for years. At exactly 3:00, my door opened. Jennifer entered first, her usual swagger replaced by tentative steps. Uncle David followed, his shoulders hunched in a way I had never seen before. They took seats across from my desk like defendants awaiting a verdict. The silence stretched until Jennifer broke. "You're going to fire us, aren't you?" Her voice came out as barely a whisper, all bravado stripped away. I studied their faces, Jennifer's makeup slightly smudged around her eyes, Uncle David's hands trembling against his knees. Fear radiated from them in waves, filling the office with desperate energy. "No," I said softly. The relief hit them like a physical force. Jennifer's shoulders sagged. Uncle David released a breath he had been holding for weeks, but their celebration was premature, and something in my expression must have warned them. "You'll stay," I continued, my voice calm and measured. "You'll clock in every single day. You'll attend every meeting, every company event, every presentation, and you'll watch the family pity case run this company." Jennifer's face crumbled as understanding dawned. "Susan, please." "You'll see me make decisions that affect hundreds of employees. You'll watch me sign contracts worth millions of dollars. You'll witness the respect I command from clients, from board members, from people who matter." Uncle David's head dropped toward his chest. "This is cruel." "Cruel?" I leaned back in my chair, fingers steepled. "Cruel is humiliating someone at a company gala. Cruel is spreading lies about their performance. Cruel is making a woman's children bear witness to their mother's daily degradation." Tears streamed down Jennifer's cheeks now. Her carefully applied mascara created dark tracks. "We're family." "You taught me that family means nothing when business is involved," I interrupted. Uncle David made that very clear. "So this is business." I opened the personnel files, spreading their contents across my desk like playing cards. 47 documented instances of workplace harassment, 32 complaints from other employees, falsified performance reports, sabotaged projects. Their faces paled further with each revelation. "Any one of these infractions justifies immediate termination," I continued. "But termination would be mercy. It would let you leave with dignity intact. Find new positions, start fresh somewhere else." Jennifer sobbed openly now, her composure completely shattered. Uncle David stared at the floor, unable to meet my eyes. "Instead, you'll remain here as a daily reminder. Every time you see my nameplate on this door, every time you address me as MS Patterson in meetings, every time you watch others seek my approval, you'll remember that the woman you tried to destroy is now the one who controls your future." I closed the files with deliberate precision. "This isn't forgiveness. This is your sentence." Uncle David finally raised his head, his eyes red. "How long?" "As long as it takes." "For what?" "For you to understand what you put me through. For you to feel what it's like to be powerless while someone else holds all the cards." They left my office in silence, their footsteps heavy against the carpeted hallway. Through my window, I watched them cross the parking lot separately, two figures diminished by their own actions. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. Samantha Rodriguez from the marketing department knocked on my open door, her young face bright with nervous energy. "Miss Patterson, do you have a moment?" "Of course. Please sit down." She perched on the edge of the chair, hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I wanted to thank you for what you're doing here. I'm not sure I understand. The way you've handled everything, the promotion, the changes, even how you dealt with—" She glanced toward the door, lowering her voice. "With the people who treated you badly." I set down my pen, giving her my full attention. "What do you mean?" "There are others like me," she said quietly. "Younger employees, women especially, who've been pushed around, overlooked, made to feel like we don't belong. Watching you stand up for yourself, seeing you succeed despite everything they threw at you." Her voice wavered with emotion. "You gave us hope." The words hit me with unexpected force. All this time, I had been focused on my own pain, my own struggle for recognition. I hadn't considered that others might be watching, taking strength from my example. They told us to keep our heads down. Don't make waves, be grateful for what we have, Samantha continued. But you showed us we don't have to accept that anymore. She stood to leave, then paused at the door. You made us believe we don't have to take it anymore. After she was gone, I sat alone in my office as afternoon sunlight slanted through the windows. The realization settled over me slowly, like dawn breaking across a landscape I hadn't noticed before. This wasn't just about Jennifer and Uncle David anymore. It wasn't even about my own vindication. Somewhere along the way, my personal battle became something larger, a symbol of possibility for everyone who had ever been underestimated, overlooked, or pushed aside. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Mom, Lily's mom said, "You're famous at work now. Is that true?" I smiled, typing back, "Not famous, sweetheart, just finally visible." Through my office window, I saw Jennifer walking toward the building, her steps slower than usual. Tomorrow, she would sit in another meeting where I led discussions and made decisions. Tomorrow, Uncle David would witness me commanding respect from people who once dismissed us both. But now, I understood that my victory wasn't really about making them watch. It was about showing everyone else the Samanthas, the overlooked, the underestimated, that power structures can change, that voices can be heard, that pity cases can become the people writing the rules. The cruelest kindness wasn't keeping them here to suffer. It was letting them witness the birth of something they never thought possible. A world where people like me don't just survive, but thrive. The transformation began with small changes that rippled outward like stones thrown into still water. My first executive decision, the policy, passed unanimously, though I caught Jennifer's bitter expression across the conference table. Within months, productivity increased by 18%. Turnover dropped to historic lows. The company culture shifted from fear-based competition to collaborative excellence, and our clients noticed the difference immediately. I launched the Women's Leadership Initiative on a crisp October morning, standing before an audience of female employees who once whispered about my struggles in break rooms. Now they listened with genuine attention as I outlined mentorship programs, leadership training, and clear pathways for advancement. Every woman in this room has something valuable to contribute, I told them. Our job is to make sure those contributions are seen, heard, and rewarded. Samantha Rodriguez raised her hand. What about those who try to undermine us? The people who see our success as their threat? I glanced toward the back of the room where Jennifer sat, her notepad untouched, her expression carefully neutral. We succeed anyway. Excellence is the best response to negativity. The applause that followed felt different from that night at the gala. This wasn't shock or surprise. It was recognition, respect, solidarity. Raymond and I met every evening now, our professional partnership deepening into something neither of us expected. We shared coffee in his office as the sun set over the city, discussing everything from budget allocations to our children's homework struggles. The Morrison account renewed for another 3 years, he mentioned, sliding the contract across his desk. They specifically requested you remain their primary contact. I scanned the terms, noting the increased value, the expanded scope, a 38% revenue increase. Not bad for a family pity case. His laugh carried genuine warmth. I love watching you own your success. It took me a while to believe I deserved it. I considered his question while watching traffic move far below. Now I know the difference between deserving something and fighting for it. Turns out the fighting is what makes you worthy. One evening, as we reviewed quarterly projections, he set down his pen and studied my face. Do you think you'll ever forgive them? Jennifer and David? The question caught me off guard, though perhaps it shouldn't. Forgiveness had become a luxury I wasn't sure I could afford. Forgiveness isn't the goal, I said finally. Peace is. And peace doesn't require their absolution. What does it require? Knowing that their opinion of me no longer defines my reality. He nodded slowly, understanding something unspoken between us. Our relationship had grown from convenience to genuine partnership, built on mutual respect rather than rescue fantasies. The second annual company gala arrived with less fanfare but more meaning. This time, I was not hiding in shadows or wearing thrift store dresses. I stood at the podium as the evening's keynote speaker. My children sat at a front table Raymond reserved specifically for them. Jennifer and Uncle David occupied a table near the back. Their presence was a quiet reminder of how far we had all traveled. Jennifer's voice had grown softer over the months, her sharp edges worn smooth by daily exposure to her own irrelevance. Uncle David spoke in meetings only when directly addressed, his former bluster replaced by careful caution. Their punishment wasn't dismissal. It was watching my success unfold before their eyes. Day after day, decision after decision, they clocked in each morning to witness a reality they tried to prevent, a world where the woman they labeled a failure now shaped their professional future. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, looking out at faces that now turned toward me with attention instead of pity. "1 year ago, someone in this room called me the family pity case. Tonight, I want to talk about what that really means." The room fell silent. Even the servers paused their movements. "It means someone who's been counted out, written off, dismissed as insignificant. It means someone whose struggles are seen as entertainment, whose failures become cautionary tales." I paused, letting the words settle. But here's what I learned. Being underestimated is actually a superpower. Laughter rippled through the audience, nervous at first, then genuine. While others were busy celebrating their assumptions about me, I was working, learning, growing, building something they couldn't see because they refused to look. Emma stood suddenly, walking toward the stage with something clutched in her hands. Sophie and Michael followed, their faces bright with pride. Together, they presented me with a handmade plaque decorated with glitter and construction paper flowers. "World's best mom, world's best boss." The applause began slowly, building like a wave. But this time it was not shock or surprise or even sympathy. It was recognition, respect, celebration of genuine achievement. People stood, their faces reflecting something I had rarely seen directed at me: admiration. "This company changed because we all changed," I continued once the applause faded. "We chose collaboration over competition, support over sabotage, excellence over politics. That's not my legacy alone. It belongs to everyone who decided to build something better." As I spoke, my eyes found Jennifer's table. She was crying quietly, not from humiliation this time, but from something more complex. Perhaps understanding, maybe regret. Uncle David stared at his hands, shoulders slumped with the weight of his own choices. Their presence no longer threatened me. If anything, they had become footnotes in a story that grew far beyond their ability to control or contain. After the gala, Raymond walked me to my car while the children chased each other around the parking lot, their formal clothes already rumpled from the evening's excitement. "You've changed everything," he said quietly. "Not just the company, the way people think about possibility." I watched Emma twirl in her dress, Sophie's gap-toothed grin catching streetlight, Michael's confident stride that mirrored my own newfound certainty. My greatest victory wasn't revenge, I realized aloud. It was reclaiming. I looked back at the hotel where conversations continued inside, where new alliances formed and dreams took shape, where women like Samantha Rodriguez planned their own rises to power. "We keep building," I said simply. "We keep showing others what's possible when you refuse to accept someone else's limitations." The children piled into my car, chattering about the evening's events, about the important people who spoke to them like equals, about their mother who commanded respect without demanding it. As we drove home through the city streets, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. The tired eyes were clearer now, the creased blazer replaced by confidence that fit better than any designer clothes. I was no longer the family pity case. I was the woman who transformed pity into power, who forged a legacy from the fire of others' cruelty, who discovered that the greatest revenge is living well enough to lift others as you rise.